What's going on, y'all? Today we have the pleasure of sitting with the illustrious Chante Graham. She's a filmmaker, she's a poet, she's a mother. She's a black woman and she's powerful. Hang around.
My name is Chante Graham, and I am from Brooklyn. I'm a filmmaker, I'm an artist, I'm a poet, I'm a writer, and I'm a mom. Hope to be a wife one day.
Talk about it.
But yeah, that's me.
So how did you get into filmmaking?
Well, I got into filmmaking actually by default. Well, not default really, but we took a contest came to Brick, and they said, "Oh, do we want to do a film?" It was like a short film contest called Mega Cities, and I was like, "Okay, I want to do this." So I had got my crew together. Shout out to Stephen, Alfonso, T. We did that, and I was like, "Okay, we're gonna make a film." I had built a relationship with a Brooklyn-based pantry, and I was like, "Okay, so let's go and film the pantry." So the story was going to be about the pantry and what they did in Brooklyn and how did they make an impact in the community, and the topic was going to be food insecurity in a city like Brooklyn where people make so much money. There's still people who can't afford to eat, so therefore they go to these pantries. But once we got to the pantry, I started to think about the people who were on the lines. So they wanted to tell their story, like why they here. So I switched the focus, and it became about them. And that film actually won the contest, and it was screened in Paris back in 2015. So that film actually took me across the world, and I'm proud of that.
That's dope. That's dope. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Shout out to everybody.
Yeah. Stephen, and he definitely, as my director of photography.
Yep. Yeah, we did that. That's what it was called at the time. We did that.
We did that.
Word. So, congratulations. Congratulations. So you also said that you're a poet, right? How did that come about?
Well, we were talking earlier about the whole concept of, I believe that we have another self, and that self, I believe, lies dormant within us. I never really had an interest in poetry. I always liked to write as a child. I had a creative imagination. So I had a bad breakup, like the kind where you on the floor kicking and screaming. Didn't know how to heal. Didn't know what was going to come of it, and I was in this real low state, and I didn't know how to express myself. And then I just picked up the pen and I started writing, and all the words, the emotions, the pain was all coming out on the paper, and I didn't think anything of it. I just kept going and writing, and I went to see a therapist because I was trying to deal with my situation. So I said, well, I'm going to seek outside counsel. And one day I just showed her my poem. She read it, and she was just like, it brought out some old dark things that I didn't know, even happened to me. Well, I knew, but I kind of put it down. And she was just like, she was amazed, and she said that got me talking and opening up. And that's how, because I was, as a child, always an introvert. So I was scared to talk to people. I kind of stayed in a shell. Even though I was the oldest out of my siblings, I still didn't have somebody older to talk to. So I kind of always kept it in, and when she read my poem and got me to open up, that's when everything opened up. So then I just was writing, and I was starting to show my work, and people were like, wow, you wrote that. And then it just took off. So when I say other self, I feel like that trauma brought out that poet who was here. But she needed something to strike her to get it all out. Because it didn't just become about the breakup, but it was about past pain that I didn't know what to do with. So the writing kind of helped me, and it was like my little personal, my little baby. So I didn't want to share my baby with the world. But then I started to get more comfortable, and then that's how I could say, okay, I call myself a poet.
So, catalyst is what it was, right? And I get that, and I kind of have the same experience, for whatever the reason, trauma does this wonderful thing for people, right? Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I think trauma does this wonderful thing for people where it makes you reevaluate, everything. Sometimes it works against us, but there are times like in the creative aspect where you use whatever that trauma is to propel you, to motivate you, to do whatever the thing is that you didn't think you can do, and for me it was because I was always a writer also. I started writing really young. I think I was maybe like 5 or 6, and my mother brought me a typewriter, and I was typing, and I was just making stories up, and I remember her taking me to a park. She took me to a park over here, 4th Avenue. It was away from, because we lived in Warners at the time, so it was kind of out the hood, right? So she took me to this park over there, so I'm running around playing, and I saw this lady, really bad skin. Now I look back, she's a prostitute, and she was getting high, right? So she had sores on her face, and I just looked at her and was like, Ma, there's something wrong with this lady. Why doesn't somebody help her? And I remember her telling me that either she said that she has to help herself or she doesn't want help. One of those two, right? Either way, no, this is absolutely unacceptable. So I ran home, got my little typewriter, and I started writing a story about it, right? And and it was me seeing that image, and then like had I not been exposed to that, maybe I wouldn't have had the passion that I write with now. You get what I mean? But another thing that when trauma is not a unique experience, right? The reason that we perceive it that way is because we don't share, we don't talk, right? So we have this event that we go to called Mind Sex, and it is exactly that. A lot of times we're talking about traumas, past experiences, good and bad, and we're just sharing our experiences, not to praise it or to condemn it or anything like that. It's just like, yo, this is what I went through, learn from it what you can. And that's dope. I don't know if there are any other aspects in life or spaces in life that we do that. You get what I mean? So, what are some of the things that you've overcome in your life? I see you smiling.
She ain't overcome it. She's fine.
Wow. I've overcome. I was a victim of child abuse in the hands of a babysitter. And that was something that I had buried. And it wasn't like, it was something that I didn't even talk to anybody about. Didn't talk to my mother or anything, because when adults abuse children, they use it as, they have a scare tactic. So there was a scare tactic. Like, if you tell your mother, and what was so crazy is it was a woman. So if you tell your mother, she's not gonna believe you. You're gonna get in trouble. They're gonna take you away. So I lived with this fear. And it made me such a closed person that I couldn't decipher borders, boundaries. When somebody did something to me that wasn't okay, I didn't speak up about it. And I learned how to lie, because she's telling me, you can't tell your mother. Nobody's gonna believe you. So now I'm like, okay, well, nobody's gonna believe me anyway, so I might as well just lie, because nobody's gonna believe me. So it put all of these things in me as a young person, and I was 6. So it shaped me until I was able to talk about it. And it wasn't until, like I said, I went through that breakup, and then I started to write, and then this is what I wrote about. And then that's when I was speaking with the therapist that I was able to talk about it. So she was like, well, you have to tell your mother. That's the first thing. And so that you could release it.
Yeah.
I had talked to my mother about it, and she was just she was just like, why you didn't tell me? So then I also, and I grew up with my mother and my father, so I didn't tell either one of them. And by now my father had already passed, so it was nothing that he could say. But she was just, she couldn't believe it. And I was like, well, who is this person? Because now I want to know who it is. So she's like, I don't remember her name. She's like, I know she was young, but I had all of these, it was like little snapshots. So I couldn't actually remember exactly what happened, but I know I can see these little snapshots of things that she did to me and somebody else. She was babysitting 2 people. So I definitely didn't trust anybody. So I grew up with a whole lot of issues that I know stemmed from this experience. And with the, I would recommend anybody go to therapy. It's good if you find the right therapist. So with, going through it and then talking about it and talking to my mom, it really helped me get it out. And then the writing was like my solace. So I could say that was something that once I let it out, then I was able to confront it and actually, say, okay, this is something that happened, and now let me move on. Not move on, but let me deal with it and find the right methods to heal myself.
Yeah.
And even with my son, I was like, I always didn't trust him with any, nobody could keep him. It was strictly my sister or his dad, but it was never any outside strangers. So it made me, like I said, it kept me in that shell. So when I was a child, I was introverted. I was very quiet. The things that I do now, everybody was like, well, where does the girl come from? Because I wouldn't even talk to people. So all of those things shaped me to be the adult that I came to be. But what was really key is the issue of boundaries. So when a child is, abused in any type of way, they don't know that it's not okay for somebody to touch them in whatever capacity that is. So whether it's some type of unwanted touch, if it's well, let me see you, pull your things down or anything like that, but you don't have boundaries. And you grow up to be an adult without boundaries. And then when these things happen to you, you be like, okay, well, whatever. Like, I don't have any boundaries anyway. So he can do this and she could do that, and I'm going to still forgive and I'm going to be okay with it. But what I've learned is that you have to have boundaries. Yeah. And you have to tell people when they do something to you that's not okay. The smallest thing, it's not okay. And I learned that as I started to age.
I figure, thank you for sharing that. Had a very similar experience, growing up, and I want to say till today, there are still some things that people do that are not okay, and I don't say anything. You get what I mean? Like it's a process. You get to a point where you realize, like, yo, I don't have to accept that, right? But then there's another process of I have to learn what I like and do not like, right? Because some things they're just part of the social construct, and this is what we do, and no, it's not, right? Nah, clean slate. I dictate what is acceptable and not acceptable in my environment, right? And then you have to, every time you encounter something new, you got to evaluate it. I have to evaluate it. It's like, yo, do I like this? Do I not like this? Is this beneficial for me? Is this taken away from me? What is this thing? Who benefits from this thing? So I have to do that type of evaluation every time I have a new experience. It is time consuming, and then sometimes, I forget what I'm trying to do because I'm so busy in my head trying to evaluate the situation, and that comes from trauma. That comes from not being able to trust people. Like I don't have any trust, right? I'm also in therapy. I had to realize where that came from. Like I was lied to my whole life about almost everything, right? So it's like, yo, when people tell me things, I hear you talking, like I hear words, but I have to see it play out in order for me to believe you, right? Consistently, like.
And it's like this constant give and take. It's like something happens and like you say, you gotta reevaluate. Well, what did they really mean by that? Or, am I really like what they say I am? So like it's a constant back and forth that plays in your mind, and you have to, it's like a lot of digging deep within to just figure out who you are, number one, and then why certain things are acceptable, and speak on those things, even if it's uncomfortable, because usually the truth is uncomfortable, and people don't want to hear the truth, and they definitely don't want to hear your truth. So that was one of the things that I had to learn.
You said the truth is uncomfortable. I don't believe that. I think the truth is the most freeing thing in existence. The truth. I think what is uncomfortable is when you realize that you've been fed a lie, or you're living a lie, or you perpetuate a lie, and then you meet the truth. That is uncomfortable, right? Because then it becomes like I was talking to Brother Severos about this concept of cognitive dissonance. It's like, yo, when you meet something and it's like, yo, one of these things don't belong.
Right.
They can't coexist. And then you're faced with a choice. It's either I go with this new thing, or I act like I don't see it, and then I stick to my lie, or I stick to my illusion, or or however you want to classify it. But we do that in so many aspects of life. We do that in relationships. We do that in business relationships. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point as a society or as a human race that we'll look past those type of things. Like I don't even know.
But I like the world that we live in. Everything is now through a screen. And that blocks off the human aspect of communication.
Yeah.
People don't even know how to communicate anymore. Everything is a text or email or this or that. We can't even have human conversations. Everything, and then I think that's where we lose.
Yeah.
Because you could be whoever you want to be behind that screen. But when we get face to face, that's where we see who the real people are. And I think that's the hurtful part of social media and the internet. There are great parts to it, but there are also parts that keep us from being human with each other.
Yeah, there's right and perception, right? So
Perception, right.
I think depending on your ability to see what's before you, it will allow you to be most human, right? Because I can sit right here, I can cut on this computer, and I can experience what the people in Africa are experiencing right now. I can look at what they're experiencing in Israel. I can look at what they're experiencing in Japan, and look at their human experiences, right? This technology is just a vessel. It's a tool. You get what I mean? And so I was having a conversation with an artist, right? And we were talking about the dynamic of, as an artist, when you are creating art for other artists, that is at your detriment, because it's no longer about the tool that you're using for therapeutic practices, right? It's not about that anymore. It's about my skill set, how well I can do this thing. Like as an MC, I used to write rhymes to compete with other rappers, right? And I got really good at it. So I used that as a cape when I walked into the room, like, yo, I'm better than y'all, right? And my ego, helped me with that, right? So it was only when I got to a point where I wasn't writing about skill set and I wasn't just trying to show my ass off, you know what I mean? I started writing about my experiences, how things were affecting me, but I didn't realize I was doing it until 10, 15 years later. I look back on it, but I can hear the difference in the music. There's one thing to just be rapping and talking about. There's another thing to be to share an experience, right? To share a dynamic. Like there's a record that I just saw. I can't remember the record right now, right? It escapes me, but there's tons of like Lauryn Hill. She. It's funny how money changes situation. Miscommunication lead to complication. I heard that when I remember I was sitting in my room first time I heard it, and I heard bam bam first. That shit is shocking. Bam bam. It's funny how money changes situation. Bam. I was like, oh, like it was a gavel, and it allowed me to see life through her eyes. Like for the most part, music was just music, and I was always into the words and telling stories, but it was different when I heard that, right? Because she was dealing with the situation with Wyclef. Right? So somebody told me about the record. It was like, yo, she dissing him. So I'm expecting her to be like, oh, motherfucker, ignorant ass me, right? So, but that wasn't the case, and that she was so eloquent on the record. If you didn't know any better, right, you would think this was a general statement. But no, she's talking directly to one, And that is something that we as artists do. We were talking to Glory B not too long ago, and she has a similar story, right? Like she was like, yo, I use this thing to, this is how I get my pain out, and I've gotten to a place where I understand the beauty or the importance of art in all its mediums, all its dynamics, right? So, I think it's important for people like yourself, to take your gifts, your talents, your resources, and tell these stories. It was dope when we were at the pantry, and we were talking, and then I was conflicted while I was standing there. I was like, yo, I'm standing here, I got this $4,000 camera, and these people are coming here for about $3 worth of food. Yeah. That was fucking with me, right? But these are just tools to tell a story. But I'm still sitting here with all this expensive ass equipment. Right. And I'm gonna get in my car and I'm gonna drive to my house, right? And it's wild, because then I watch these little infomercials on TV. You can feed a whole family for 35 cents a day, and I'm like, yo, either that's not real, it's not possible, right? You know what I mean? It's like, or somebody's keeping the money. It's like, because if you can feed a whole family for 35 cents a day, how will we still have hunger? There's billionaires. Like, So I don't know. I think that, I think we should find a way, right, to, I be going off on tangents, boy. Like, woo! All the way around the world.
No, we do.
Yeah. But, it's just, it's allowing myself to be me, right? I try not to put myself in a box. Like, I don't really like labels, right? I used to hear labels as an artist. What kind of rapper are you? What the fuck? I got bars. I'm a good kind. Like, what do you mean? I don't know how to, So, what are some of the titles that you like about that people put on you, or that you don't necessarily like that people put on you?
I hate the title strong black woman. I hate that title because it doesn't allow us to be women. Like, we have to put this strong, so that makes you feel like I gotta conquer the world, or I have to, be everything for everybody. And traditionally, black women were everything for everybody. So the title of strong black woman is something that I don't like.
So what would you replace it with?
Why can't I just be a woman? Like, why can't I just be me? Why do I have to be Superwoman? And then we go into the world with this armor, and it's like, even I've met people, and we talk, and then they'll be like, oh, where you grew up? I grew up in East New York, pink houses. Oh, you from the projects? Like, okay, so I'm not. What is somebody from the project supposed to look and sound a certain way? So when we give us these labels, or if you're strong, you're associated with being a bitch. But now we done got so twisted. We took bitch, and that's a good term.
Mm-hmm.
We want to call ourselves bad bitches, which I think is the most ridiculous thing on the planet. Why would you want to be a female dog as a black woman?
Mm-hmm.
So we take all these negative connotations and try to make ourselves look something different than we are.
Yeah.
And I think when you put these labels on us, it's like we gotta live up to these titles. And we become so strong that we feel like we don't need anybody. And that's, a man needs a woman, and a woman needs a man. And that's how we procreate, and that's how we give life. So we need each other, but it's a systematic thing, and it goes back to the plantation. Mm-hmm. When the man and the woman got married, they had to go back to separate plantations. He was the buck. He had children with, could have been even his sisters. So all of this stuff is in us, and we do these things unconsciously, and young people see these things. So now the young girls be bad bitches. Like, I just don't understand it, because we don't know who we are as women. So when we put these titles, oh, I'm a strong black woman, so now I have to be this, this superwoman. Or when you're a strong black woman, oh, she's a bitch. You can't just be, as a black woman, you can't just be a woman. We have to be everything. And I'm tired of trying to be everything.
I think that if that's not a unique experience, right? That's not a unique. I hear a lot of women, right, that have that stance, and I also hear the opposite. I also hear women who tell me, I don't need a man, and they have justifiable reasons why they don't need a man, right? But there is inevitability in everything. If you do not want your bloodline to die with you, you do need a man, right? Even if, I don't need a man, I need a sperm donor. Well, where do you get the sperm from? A woman?
A man.
You need it. Real simple, right? But there is a patriarchal hand that pushes things this way, right? So, we can go into the whole, the history of, how we got here, but I think, I think we have a understanding of, how we've landed where we are. It's about knowing that, how do we take that history, and all of the current things that are happening now, and try to change the trajectory of our future, right? Because we could sit here and we could still tell each other whether we do or we don't need each other, Obviously, if we don't want to die, we need each other, right? So let's try to get past that. But it's difficult when it goes back to labels and it goes back to boxes, right? Because, we were having a mindset session, and at this particular session, the room was full of women. I think I was the only brother in the room, and the conversation went down the route of dating in the 70s, dating in the 80s. And I'm relatively young, right? So I don't know what the fuck y'all talking about, right? But I'm here and I'm listening to the stories, and I listen to the sisters express how there weren't any men. And I'm like, what do you mean there's always men? She's like, nah, the ladies were saying there weren't any men around. And I said, well, what do you mean? Why weren't there any men? Always men. She was like, yo, they were being jailed at astronomical rates. And this is early into the crack era when everybody was, and then drugs took so many men. So either you were getting locked up for selling drugs or you were the victim of drugs. Either way, it felt like it was like 60 or 70% of the men gone. Now the women have to pick from the few that are left, and that left a lot of men with this unique predicament. Like, yo, it's 75 women to every one man.
But I had a different experience. I grew up in the 80s.
Okay.
And my experience, there were men. I mean, there was a lot of men who were killed and that I know personally or went to jail. But when you went out, you saw men.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fast forward 2020, now I see the difference. But I feel like in the 80s, I feel like I know there were a lot of men being, incarcerated, but I feel like there was still more. It was more. I've seen more men in the 80s and the 90s than I do now.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, now I go on the train and I look for black men.
Yeah.
Because I'm in corporate America, so I mean, come on, you can count on our fingers how many black men in my corporation alone. So I go on the train consciously looking to see, do I see black men on their way to work? And 9 times out of 10, every day I can count on my hand how many black men I see. So I noticed the difference and the change from in the 80s, like I said, when I was coming up to now.
I think just based on right, so we're gonna figure out how to make that work too, because we're gonna do that whole right. So just based on that, there's always been good times, there's always been bad times, right? So I think it depends on where you are. It kind of dictates what you see, right? So if you came up in Flatbush, your perception of black men is going to be a little different.
Right.
The count of black men is going to be a little different. If you live in Bensonhurst, what is a black man? What are you talking about? Where those at, right? So I keep in the back of my mind when someone is sharing a perception with me or a story with me, that there is a alternate side of that same coin, right? Like today we talk about, slavery is a thing of the past. They are literally selling black people into slavery today in 2020. Yeah. Today they're doing it. So what I'm saying is, I used to tell I couldn't have been no slave. I'd have did this, that, and the third. Good thing slavery's over. It ain't over. I'm just living in a space where it's not overt. You get what I mean? So, but it's still the same. It's still the same thing. I think there was always a oppressive relationship between people. It's a struggle for dominance, right? There's a book that I'm reading, 12 Steps to Life. I think that's the proper title, 12 Steps to Life. And they talk about this concept of dominance. And they reference crabs. They said crabs have been around 350 million years. That's longer than humans have been around, right? And they say that crabs, when they meet each other, male crabs, they fight, right? They do certain stances and dances or whatever. They put their claws up, and then they get busy and they start fighting each other. And the crab who loses, he walks around with his claws lower because of an esteem. He just got his ass whooped, right? And then the crab who wins, he walks around with his chest out, talking shit, doing a little dance. All the other little lady crabs are sweating them now. This is their society, though. You get what I'm saying? Based on the book, right? Based on, I don't know, I ain't a crab, I wasn't in the ocean. I don't know. I'm just telling you, right? But based on that, it's like, yo, this is not a unique to the human experience kind of thing, right? So is this something that we can ever get away from? Because the crab's been here for 350 years and they still ain't figured it out. Right. Are we smarter than crabs? I would like to think so.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so, right? We sitting here talking about them. But and they're not talking about us, right? Right? Or maybe they are, right? They go there. Yeah, man. You know, it's just, you know, crazy little world, crazy little world. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Welcome. We gotta do this again.
Absolutely. Sooner than later. Sooner than
Yeah.
later. You know.
Definitely.
I like the pictures. Hopefully you like the pictures.
Yeah. They look good.
They look.
You do your thing.
I know, you know, I do my thing. I do my thing. I do my thing.
Little
Little something. You know what I'm saying? A little something. So, and thank you guys for hanging out. See y'all, you know, same time next time. So then, yep.
Thanks again, Miss Chante Graham, for hanging out with us. Yo, we talked about a lot of things, and then always keep in mind the importance of labeling yourself or being aware of how people label you. You don't have to fit into boxes, right? That is, you know, that's just something that you don't necessarily have to subscribe to. But you do have to subscribe to this channel. You know, I appreciate that. See you guys next time.